Well, that was fun. I was talking for a solid 3.5 minutes and then realized there was a little bit of an issue. I wasn't live. He'd said I was live and then it didn't. Thanks, guys, for joining us. I hope everybody's safe and healthy. I was talking about how lovely it is being able, at least in my life, to spend time with my family right now during these times, and we're getting a little extra time, at least I am, at night in particular. Not everybody has that situation where you can think a little bit more deeply about life, about family, about what you want to see your life, the things that you want to evolve in the world, how you want to build things. And I think for us on the left right now, we are at a moment where while we were kicked down, and we are still being kicked down hard, I think there's a freedom in that we are not looking to Bernie as our only guiding light. We actually have to build it by ourselves now. And there were a lot of infrastructure issues that were highlighted in the 2016 and 2020 race that, it's made us realize that we really have to think smarter and build out our left infrastructure quite a bit. I say that because my cousin George is here, and we stayed up last night. I had a few too many hard kombuchas and some wine, not a great mix. So now I'm drinking my green kombucha, which is not hard. But, c'est la vie. I'm at home. I'm not going anywhere. So, Nancy Pelosi, I started off earlier when I thought I was live talking about this new $3 trillion coronavirus relief plan that Pelosi unveiled today. And she's been criticized by the right wing and the left. And, Senate Republicans need something to exercise their power over Democrats. I mean, they're the extreme version of capitalists, and the Democrats are the status quo capitalists that represent the banks, and we know the health insurance companies, we know the like. I think what's frustrating about this is it's pretty clear that this is not going to pass in the Senate. And despite that, Pelosi still didn't even want to, as a branding exercise, show any sort of movement towards progressives. And it's not even progressives, actually. I feel like we need to stop using the word progressive when we're talking about working people. You're either for working people or you're not. It's not partisan. It is, are you there representing the banks or the working people? You can't have both. It's not like progressives are just like these starry-eyed folks. You have a crisis right now, and you have a duty as the Speaker of the House to rise to the occasion of this moment. And if you're not doing that in this type of moment, then what are you there for? I don't want to see your frickin' ice cream in your $20,000 refrigerators, as we've all seen, and freezers. I want to see what you're doing in a moment of crisis. All of the ads, all of the electioneering, all of the candidate recruitment, all of the deals you make with unions mean nothing. It means nothing if in this moment, when you know you're going to lose the vote, you can't even stand up for what's right. And I think that is what is so frustrating about today. You guys are talking about my reflective glasses. Before, when I was on air, I was talking about how I needed a new pair of glasses that are truly anti-reflective because I bought cheap ones and they're not anti-reflective. So maybe we'll start a GoFundMe for Nomi to have a pair of expensive or decent. These are like $30 on Zenni.com. I have a lot of Zenni.com glasses. Maybe they'll buy an ad on our show if I throw that out there. So Pramila Jayapal and Mark Pocan, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal is from Washington State, and Mark Pocan is from Wisconsin. They are the co-chairs of the Progressive Caucus. Now, before we even get into the Congressional Progressive Caucus and what they were fighting for, and why they really went head-to-head with Pelosi today, the Congressional Progressive Caucus isn't a unified front of progressives. I think people have different definitions of what progressives are. Progressives, I think we all have a pretty clear, if you're really progressive, you have a pretty clear definition of what, you don't take corporate money, you don't take corporate PAC money, you believe in criminal justice reform, you believe in intersectional reform, you believe in supporting unions, you may not, maybe it's not right to take banker money, right? Like big bank money. But that's not how the Progressive Caucus looks. You have actual progressives in the Progressive Caucus, and then you have some folks who claim to be progressive and maybe lean more towards a few progressive issues and champion them and even brand themselves around those issues, whether it's criminal justice reform or immigration reform. But at the end of the day, a lot of folks in the Progressive Caucus endorsed Joe Biden in the primary when they had literally all the choices. And that says a lot. So Jayapal and Pocan are doing the best I believe that they can in this moment when you don't have a unified progressive front. You don't have a militant progressive caucus that all unify and say, we are not taking corporate money, we're standing up to big banks, we're standing up to power. When you have a Congress with only a handful of progressives, there's only so much power you can exercise from inside, and of course there's external pressure. I think what's frustrating about Pelosi is she lives in a bubble. She lives in a bubble where it is all power all day long. Her district is definitely, progressive. I think I have to look at the numbers, but I think Bernie probably did very well in that district. But it's also wealthier. It's like wealthier progressives. So she's not answering to her voters per se because she doesn't really get challenged at home. Shahid Buttar is running against Pelosi. I'm interviewing him on Thursday. We're going to do a long extended interview. I find him brilliant. I think he has real life experience in the progressive movement and electorally. This is a really rough year for everybody who's a challenger. So, we'll see how this all rolls out. But even if he doesn't win this time around, I think he should next time. And I'm sure Pelosi will do all she can to prevent him from pushing back and embarrassing her in any way, even if he comes close. So with that being said, my frustration here is Pelosi didn't even try to appear to be for working people. She said this is about the people in this speech, but at the end of the day, this bill that she proposed was kind of a spit in the face of working people because it protected lobbyists, her donors, and frankly, big banks. So Jayapal and Pocan sent a letter to Pelosi and the House Majority Leader, Steny Hoyer, who's from Maryland, seeking to delay the vote. The vote's supposed to be on Friday. And they want to have a full caucus discussion on the, quote, the bill and any amendments that may be needed. Jayapal said in an interview later, under no circumstance are we ready to vote on this bill this week. She pushed back hard. And that's the kind of progressive fighting we need, especially if you're in a leadership position. She also said she's still reviewing the bill. It's like 1,800 pages. But she wasn't prepared to support the measure. She as the leader of the Progressive Caucus. So, that's really interesting because you have two leaders of the Progressive Caucus who are essentially speaking on behalf of even some people in there who are a little bit more corporate. I think that's actually more indicative of Nancy Pelosi not having her house in order. Nancy can throw the progressives a bone, especially if she knows she's not going to win. It's like when Kamala Harris signs on to a progressive bill that she knows isn't going to pass anytime soon, like Medicare for All a few years ago. Or, $2,000 for every home. Kamala's thinking politically how she's going to be able to keep the progressives on her side. I say that figuratively because we know many progressives really see her skeptically for a lot of reasons, but she's playing a vice presidential game. So Jayapal pushed hard for the inclusion of the Paycheck Guarantee program in the new bill. But senior Democrats contend they weren't able to turn the proposal into legislative text, saying it is too costly and complicated. If you can't pay why have this money, these tax dollars that are there for emergencies, if you're not going to use them during emergencies? You have no problem bailing out banks. You have no problem bailing out insurance companies. You have no problem writing checks to weapons manufacturers and to the Defense Department. But when we are facing Great Depression unemployment numbers soon, and we're going to open up the economy in many states, putting more people at risk, because we know very well that is a game about, Donald Trump wanting to keep unemployment down, because if it rises any further, he's in real danger of his reelection. So that we're going to go through another flow of we're not going to, the curve is not going to be leveled for a while because we're going to have these peaks and lows. Listen, South Korea, who managed the situation COVID much better than most countries, they're having, a peak again. So the Paycheck Guarantee program, they say that it's too costly and complicated. It is backed, this is Jayapal's plan, it's backed by more than 60 House Democrats, and the price tag is $650 billion for 6 months. Cool. Totally worth it. We are a consumer-based economy. If that means that people can pay their rent on time, if that means that people can pay their health insurance because, God forbid, they pass Medicare for all and they're dealing with a health crisis, if that means 2 or 3 people in a home have been hit by COVID and are unemployed, are not working for other reasons, staying at home. I mean, we know the domino effect of COVID right now. So it's not a bailout. It's not a freebie. It's not a giveaway. It is a direct investment into our economy. You're taking $650 billion over 6 months, which is going to stabilize our economy and prevent it from going into complete shutdown. Yet, the Ways and Means Chairman Neal instead supported an extension of the employment retention tax credit backed by Democratic moderates, which is a little over $200 billion. I don't know if these people get mathematics. I really just don't understand. So we have some super chat questions here. Alberto, why don't they just not vote for Pelosi in 2021? Do you mean as speaker? I think that she already faced a serious threat. I mean, when Tim Kaine ran against her, he wasn't, the problem with Tim Kaine is he was like, oh, I'm running as like somebody who's from middle America, but, who believes in climate change. And like, sounds like I'm for working people, but at the end of the day, he's a moderate and he's just a younger moderate. So that was a very weird dynamic, like finding somebody who's just a younger moderate from a different part of the country running against Pelosi. Now, if you had an actual progressive running against Pelosi, I don't know who's progressive enough and has that support that they'd be able to put a dent into her winning. I can't say. I've never been a congressional reporter, so I'm very curious to understand the power dynamics of the Democratic Caucus and where those, I'm sure a lot of it's not discussed, but where the pressure points are. The fact that Jayapal pushed back so hard is reassuring, and I personally am very impressed with Jayapal. I get, you're not, they have to answer to the public, right, and to the progressive movement, and they're there as representatives of working people, especially if you've come up in a completely different life, like your life is just fundamentally different than most congressmen and mostly men, but women, you're just going to come at this from a different approach, this crisis. And Jayapal is one of those people. Like she came up as a workers' rights advocate. She was a labor organizer. She's an immigrant. I mean, her life is just fundamentally different. Her life story is fundamentally different than Nancy Pelosi's, who's one of the richest members of Congress. So this is like, these are the moments where you see, like, it's a moment of crisis. If Pelosi's living in a power, I don't know, like, does she go out and talk to people? Does she understand? Does she see the pain that people are feeling right now? This isn't an exercise in power. This isn't like, a chess game. This is about what's going to prevent people from dying today. And a $200 billion plan from moderates, you mean bank representatives, is offensive. You want to invest, so you can either invest in the economy directly and prevent a complete collapse of the economy, or you'd rather invest in a bank being able to like keep their bottom line for a quarter. That's like what it comes down to. Keeping the economy afloat, which is a consumer-based working person's economy, or making sure Bank of America doesn't dip a little bit down. And I don't know what the banking lobby's doing right now, or some of these other lobbies are doing. I don't know if they're virtually lobbying. Like, it's madness. So Steny Hoyer, told reporters Tuesday that he and Pelosi believe that Jayapal proposal has great merit to it, and said it could be considered in future relief bills. This is not going to be our last word nor the final word as we go forward, and her proposal is certainly under great discussion. We want all members to support this legislation and that provision that's in it or out. So, giant middle finger to working people. They've got it covered. They're the adults in the room. Oh, by the way, they're not going to win this vote anyways. So what is the point? What is the point? What does the banking industry have on Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer that they can't just say, you know what, give the progressives a little bit of a win so they feel better? They can't even do that. They can't even say, all right, we'll give you this one so you can go back to your districts, get reelected, whatever their game is normally. They can't do that because God forbid we win at all. We win a fight we can't even win. God forbid we win a round knowing that the next round we're going to get crushed. God forbid we win the message. God forbid we win the platform, because then Pelosi would have to go back and, later when they actually do have some leverage, she'd have to stand by what she fought for. It's easier for her to fight for nothing than to stand up for something now, because later when she might have some leverage, she may actually still have to have those values. We need to have more progressives in Congress. If you want your energy that you put into the Bernie campaign, if you're frustrated as a progressive and you're looking for a place to put your energy right now, help these congressional candidates out right now who are challenging the establishment. They need phone calls. They need donations. They are going against well-funded establishment folks who probably didn't even want to do field to begin with and now can just buy a bunch of ads. Well, these are candidates that we're going to go out there and knock on doors. I believe in the matriarch candidates right now. I think there's something powerful about having women, working class women, go into Congress and bring their experiences to these fights. Because there's never going to be that question. If you've grown up poor, if you've grown up homeless and you're running for Congress, you're already putting everything on the line. You're going into debt. You're taking a pay cut. Your family's, managing things if you're able to do that. And then you go to Congress, you're sitting there having your personal experiences frame every argument. That's why I believe in the matriarch candidates. All right, we have some questions here. From Sappy Sad Love Shit. Why do we keep asking why? I think they know exactly what they're doing. Same as Trump. Asking why is irrelevant. What comes after the question? I just answered that. What comes after the question? We have to get more progressives elected. Ro Khanna says this all the time. He's like, we need more people so that we can actually push back more. You have more leverage when you have more power. And we need more, a lot of the progressives in the Progressive Caucus are weak. They might even be strengthened knowing that there's others there that can have their back. Maybe it's because of their districts. Maybe it's just their personalities. I think there are a lot of young people who recognize that the future is very progressive leaning, but these are people who were conditioned and worked their way up through a very establishment system. I think we could flip them, but we can only flip them if we have a stronger core caucus. Go with the flow. Thanks. How do we factor in powering down industrialization and focusing on hyper-local self-sufficiency? If we grew food locally, we can just transition. I agree. I think we have to look at this in terms of monopolies, and again, like these farming monopolies, big farms, big agriculture. They have lobbyists, and it's the same game. They have lobbyists. They buy out small farms, factory farms. We do have to go more local. I think that there's a lot of movement in going more local. Just in the last 10 years. I mean, so I stopped eating meat in 2005, and I remember when I stopped eating meat, I said to myself, well, I had read this book called, don't make fun of me, but it's called Skinny Bitch. It was actually great. It was a very good book on, it probably needed a different name, but it was about the meat industry and factory farms, and how even then it was really hard to regulate organic farms. You just didn't have as many. And they always advocated at that time for going more local with your farming for meat. And they said, if you're going to eat meat, do it locally. And so that was always in my mind. I was like, well, if my grandmother kills the lamb in the backyard, then I'll eat that. Of course, that's not what I do, and I got sick of it. But 15 years ago, there wasn't enough of an infrastructure in place, the way that there used to be in the old days, to provide that for me at that time. But it's getting so much better. sometimes you're trading things off too. If you're in California and you're eating locally, like the water is coming downstream from a farm that isn't organic. There's obviously ways to regulate it, but I do think that we need to break up all these big monopolies. Not just breaking up the banks, but we have to break up the monopolies. Amazon is a threat to Walmart now. Walmart was a threat to small businesses. You remember when You've Got Mail? Was that the book, George, or the movie, George, with Tom Hanks, and she had the bookstore, the small bookstore? Was that You've Got Mail?
That you're asking me this question.
It was You've Got Mail.
Actually, yes, that is.
Yeah, that was it. Okay. So You've Got Mail. Remember that movie? I know this is very basic, but he's making fun of me and I'm making fun of myself.
Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan numbers?
Yeah, it was Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. So she had the small bookstore and he was the big bookstore, and they fell in love, and how could big business and small business fall in love with each other? It'd be like if I fell in love with a Joe Biden spokesperson. So I mean, that was the 90s thing, right? The big bookstores came in and crushed all the small bookstores. Well, then Amazon came and killed all the big bookstores, and now Amazon's building bookstores. It's so confusing. But these are monopolies. They have to be broken up. It's crushed. There's been so many levels of crushing that even if you were small business owners have to have the access to capital to be able to build from the ground up again. I mean, farming in particular is very hard because it takes many seasons and years to build that. And of course, drought is a big issue. And, do you have the ability, do you have the funding to be able to fight off any drought issues? So complicated. I'm not an expert in farming, but I do believe in it, and that was a great question. What other questions do we have here? Arizona, yes. AZ gal, hey there. I'm in Arizona right now. You saw that Governor Ducey is lifting restrictions. Uh-huh. Yeah. Smart. Unbelievable. I took a drive yesterday. The place I wanted to go was closed. I go out maybe once a week to pick up groceries. And actually, right after this, I'm going to get some groceries. But I took a drive a little bit further away from where we live, and I couldn't believe how many people were on the street walking who didn't have masks on. I couldn't believe, and it wasn't a walkable community, but it was just in general they were walking, and how much traffic there was. It seemed like very normal traffic. And granted, people have to go to work, and I understand that, but some of it seemed excess. You're reading all these stories about how animals are coming out because there's no traffic. It doesn't seem like that here in Tucson. And Tucson's not Phoenix. Tucson's a little bit more progressive. So I'm not. Yeah, I think that this isn't going to last very long. This whole opening up the economy thing. People are going to be afraid too, and I just think some businesses aren't going to be able to sustain themselves because not enough people. And there's going to be businesses that are just going to say no, I'm not doing it, or they're corporate and they're going to say no. I can't sit here and build a model where in some states we have one set of standards, in other states we have different sets of standards. There will be businesses like hair salons and then they're going to be like, oh, no one's coming in because they're afraid. We'll see. It's an interesting experiment. It's a dangerous experiment, and I probably won't be going out a lot. So that's fun. All right, what other questions do we have here? Do we have any other super chats, guys? This is fun. I'm doing this through OBS. It's looking great. I feel like I'm finally getting used to this. What kind of questions do we have about the world today? Yeah. This is lovely. So Washington Post own Amazon, Bezos. They won't break up Amazon. Stop reading exactly. So that's the billionaire mindset now, is how do I own every industry? How do I have a footprint in all these different industries? Even if I lose money, it's giving me a mouthpiece. It's giving me power, leverage over another marketplace, because at the end of the day, they probably aren't even, it's like the cash flow, their cash flow is coming from one thing, but their wealth is coming from whatever their complicated, mechanism for making money is. And it usually has to do with some sort of crazy algorithm. I love watching mafia movies and shows, and I don't know if you guys watched Ozark. I just finished up the last season. It's a great way of looking at cash flow of rich people, whether they're drug dealers or not, and how much it affects the economy. I mean, certain money goes into certain projects because it's a front and they need to like launder the money, and then the owner of that business, the laundering business, partners up with the billionaire to start a foundation or to partner up on another project. So you have one person who's made their money off of a business and is a billionaire, another person who's laundering it for somebody else, and then they partner to build something, and then you have, you know, to lobby the lawmakers to build that and have the right zoning. And then you have the unions come in, and then the unions are like, well, you need to do it at our rates. And it's super interesting to see how much money, the flow of money and where it comes from is affecting small business, because that's essentially what we're talking about here. I definitely recommend watching Ozark. I also recommend watching The Laundromat, the movie on Netflix right now about money laundering. You know, so much of New York is, and really many cities around the world, real estate is used to place money, and it's affecting, you know, everyday people's lives. It's making real estate unaffordable, rent unaffordable. It's pushing out small businesses. It's, you know, replacing small businesses with the Chase banks, and it's dangerous. Okay, what other questions we have? Why don't you interview Simone Sanders? No, thanks. I think there are a lot of people in the world I want to interview. Probably not her. She is what she is, but no thanks. Are we having some internet, some lagging? I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I'll have to work on this. But what I'm probably gonna, it's probably something with the system OBS that we're doing. I probably have a setting shifted for the live stream versus taping. I am not brilliant when it comes to this technological stuff. I am very grateful for our team who's been there supporting us through all the tech glitches along the way, especially with audio. It's been very difficult. All right. I am off to go grocery shopping. Make sure to stay safe, stay healthy. I am grateful to you. We have a new show up right now, as you see. It's a very long interview with John Nichols. Could have gone for another hour probably. And his new book that's out that discusses the last 75 years of the Democratic Party and how progressives have, frankly, you know, just been crushed. I just started reading. It's super interesting. From Henry Wallace and FDR starting third parties that failed, all the way to Democratic Socialists in the 70s being crushed. Definitely recommend watching the interview and reading the book. And then Semelis Lopez, who's running for Congress in the Bronx right now, in the poorest district in the country. She's formerly homeless. Friend of mine, great candidate. Definitely check her out. Send her some money. Support her however you can, because, you know, this is the kind of candidate who is in a low turnout district, and during COVID, you know, it really comes down to as much help as possible. So definitely check out that race. And then I do a monologue on the New York State presidential primary, why it matters. You know, if Bernie's out of the race, why do people care? Why should they put their energy into this? Just take a look at that, because we discussed on the Majority Report today a little bit. With that, I will be doing another live stream on Thursday. The time has moved. I don't know if this is updated everywhere. We decided this week, because I have people on my team, like Kelly, who know what they're doing, who told me, you probably want to move the live stream to 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, because more people are going to watch it that way. And I was like, I'm listening to you, because you know what you're doing, Kelly. So that is what we're doing now, is Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern live stream. You know, super chat, ask me questions. Come with your questions. I may not always have something to talk about. I may be exhausted and I just want to talk with you guys. But I was very frustrated about Pelosi today. So I'm glad that I got that out of my system. I'm glad we had a chat, and, you know, maybe she'll listen to us. All right, take care, everybody. Oh, hey, what? I'm a bad pitcher. George, you have to, like, whip me. Be like, pitch.
What I do?
If you're not a patron, please go to patreon.com/The Nomi Key Show. I don't have any of my mugs here, but we have mugs now. If you come in as a patron over, I think it's like $35, you get a mug. We also have bags that I'm mailing to our Rachel Maddow patrons and above. Oh, George is going to grab a bag for me so I can show it to you, because it's over there. Oh, the mug is in that box too, if they want to see. And then the stickers, we have stickers as well. So this is the new bag. You know, this is it. It's supposed to be sold at live events, but we're not doing live events anymore. But don't throw me the mug, George. And these are the mugs, and stickers are, you know, they look just like our logo. for your computers. So that's some of the swag we have. But definitely, if you go to patreon.com/the Nomi Key Show, you get fun stuff as well. All right. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.